Welcome to the FBA Basecamp podcast.
Welcome, everybody. This is Joe and Jeff with FBA Basecamp. We have with us today Dylan. He's a real estate expert that's worked into getting into Amazon space. He's now a seven-figure seller in Amazon and still maintains his real estate portfolio, which has about 36 doors. He's here to talk to us about all things Amazon, credit cards, points, travel in the world, and anything else we come to talk about. If you have any questions, leave them in our comments below, and we'll answer them as we go through everything. Welcome, Dylan.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Do you want to give kind of your backstory a little bit on kind of what got you into Amazon and what got you into, I guess, real estate, which was what got you, have money for Amazon?
Yeah, totally. So I came from, I guess from the very beginning, always just been really interested in entrepreneurship, wanted to own my own business. And like, we're talking, age 7, I was like ready to be an entrepreneur. So kind of grew up that way with my dad being in business. So always had that as kind of my sights set on trying to get into entrepreneurship. Wasn't a clear-cut path to get there. I worked quite a few corporate jobs, worked in banking, sold insurance, worked at Tesla for a little while in sales, all sorts of different jobs, worked for my parents' business as well, but with the goal always being to be an entrepreneur one day. And so I jumped into real estate kind of during 2020 is when I was starting to, binge watch YouTube videos, learn about real estate and all the benefits that come with it. And then I heard everybody talking about how low interest rates were at the time. You just hear all over the news. It's like record breaking, low interest rates, great time to get in. So kind of took all that hype and started investing little by little into real estate and built a pretty good portfolio over really just 18 months from like I think it was January 2021 till July 2022 was my last purchase. And so just went on a spree, like got hooked after the first one, started collecting rent. I was like, let's go. This is awesome. Tried to get more debt, loved the financing and just went down that rabbit hole. And it really was sold to me as like a way to quit your 9-to-5 and become, financially free. And so that's really the path I went down with it. It was like, started as an investment and then it was like, okay, wait, this can maybe replace my job and I can live off of it. And then I guess another backstory is I've always been into like the whole Tim Ferriss, vagabonding, traveling the world. So a couple of those too, I was like on a mission to quit my 9-to-5, collect real estate to live off and then go travel. So that's really what I did at the end of 2022. I had this portfolio of real estate. I quit my job, ended up traveling for a year with my now wife and came back and was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm in a new market. We moved from St. Louis to San Antonio. And so at that time I was kind of looking at what am I going to do next and came across Amazon. And so that's really been my focus for the last year and a half has been building up Amazon.
Very cool. I've seen you in some of the groups and then on X recently, like exploded. Like you post so much. I'm like, I was telling Jeff, I'm like, hey, we need to post like Dylan's posting on here. I was like, he's got a lot of good content and great information and getting a following behind you as well, which is nice.
Yeah, we're trying. I don't have any strategy whatsoever. I don't know anything about social media. I just kind of like, I'll be walking down the hall and I'll think of something. So I throw it out there on X. And yeah, I feel like I connect with a ton of people on there. It's funny. I went to the Miami Sellers Conference this past week and I had talked to a lot of people that I had talked to online, but I'd be talking to them for literally 10 minutes before they put 2 and 2 together and knew who I was. Cause like my face isn't anywhere out there. And like, I don't really do many videos and stuff. So it was funny. I had to like almost show people my Twitter and like, oh yeah, dude, I follow you. I love your stuff. Like we talk all the time.
Yeah, that's funny.
So that's something I think I need to work on is get my face out there.
Yeah, I was asking somebody else and they're like, is that the guy who smiles all the time? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I was like, I'm not really sure if that's them or not. But I was like, he definitely smiles a lot. It was Deke that you're talking about. And I was like, I don't know if Deke was there or not, but I think he was. Yeah, we didn't go to it this year. We may go to it next year. Obviously, it's gaining a lot of ground. I think it's grown quite a bit over the years, and Avery's done a lot with it. But yeah, it's funny to see people in person, especially with like a lot of times you're trying to not show people exactly what you're doing when you're outsourcing. So like unless you're doing like retail arbitrage and you'll bump into some random people, it's unlikely that you just randomly walk into somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I also sell on Amazon. Just doesn't really happen a whole lot, even though there's millions of sellers. So yeah, that's always something that's interesting is to see the the other groups of people and go to the networking events.
Yeah, it was cool. I think before the conference, I had only met like 2 other Amazon sellers in real life. So I don't know. There's something about being around people in real life where you're like, okay, this makes sense. This isn't just like a bunch of scammers online trying to sign me up for coaching courses. It's the real deal.
I know I had left my job and started Amazon, like kind of did the opposite everybody else does. And I didn't ramp up into it at all. I just left. We moved down to Fort Worth, and then I started selling. And I talked to Miles like previously before that. He kind of geared me up for a little bit of what to do and how to do it. And that it's a real thing. And then I think I was at like my second time going out to like TJ Maxx or something to do some RA, and like happened to bounce this one woman that was there that was like, she only sells stuff that's like going to be going out of whatever we call it, where they're not making it anymore. They're just discontinuing it. So she's got whole like stockpiles of discontinued makeups and perfumes and lotions. And she's like, you should buy this. And I'm like, why aren't you buying? She's like, well, I sell it on eBay and I already have like 1,000 units of it. So she's like, I'm not going to buy anymore. And she's like, the Amazon space has always scared me. And I'm like, that's insane that you have that many things and all this and you don't do the Amazon side of stuff. But she was real nice. But she had a storage unit she's just working out of, and she has a computer set. She got one that had a plug that was nearby it, so she plugs in the extension cord and can do all of her stuff. And she pulls off the Wi-Fi either from a place next door or from the center or something. Like she gets Wi-Fi somehow in the building there, and was doing all that, which was kind of interesting to see how people just do things. And then the only other person I think I bumped into was at UPS, where I saw they had like 2 labels on the side of the box. I'm like, oh, you sell it on Amazon? They're like, no. And I'm like, I see it right there. It's an FBA. But people are all hush hush, like they don't want to tell people about it, and it's a funny world. But it is nice to get into the event groups and talk to people, especially when you talk to them so much online.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's dive in a little bit about your real estate. So it sounds like you started very similar to me around COVID. I think we purchased our first property in summer of 2020. Sounds like maybe 2021 for you. And it sounds like you closed on 36 doors in 18 months, give or take. How did you manage to keep up with that? How did you fund that? Talk to me a little bit through that.
How'd you find them?
Yeah, good questions. So I always like talking to you, Jeff, about your rentals, because I know we love our low interest debt and all that kind of stuff. So that's that was a big motivator behind starting. Really, was just like trying to capitalize of what I thought was a pretty good time to buy. But it was a combination of a bunch of stuff. So like I said, I had worked at Tesla for about 3 years, and it was my first job out of college. I made $50,000 my first year, and like just took the most basic job I possibly could get there. But it was, a quickly moving company. And so I kind of got promoted a few times, and I got a good amount of stock options as I got promoted.
Yep. Nice.
So and then every year I was there, I put the 15% RSUs, into the, out of my paycheck, reinvesting into the company. So did that for 3 years. And then Tesla stock obviously went crazy during COVID. So, I mean, it was my entire net worth was in Tesla stock. Maybe I should diversify here a little bit. I got, $1,000 in my checking account, but I got all this Tesla stock. Let me try to do something here. And so that's really kind of the rabbit hole I went down. I did the classic, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and kind of bought into that whole thing as well. And so I was starting to read how, if I sell this stock, I'm going to owe a ton of taxes, but if I invest in real estate, there's ways to avoid some of that tax. So it kind of all just lined up, and I had a little bit of seed money to buy the first couple properties. And then, so that's really what I did. I think it was the first 3 deals. I did the classic conventional financing, 20% down. And then by the time the third deal closed, that first one I was able to, it had the 6-month seasoning period. So I can now refinance that first one, take the cash out, and then kind of roll it into the next one. And so that's really how it worked. I think the fourth one, I just refinanced that first one, bought the fourth one. And then I had a huge opportunity that literally changed the game for me. Was my property man. I had a property manager at the time because I was working, literally 50 hours a week for my dad. He was retiring, wanting to get out of his business. So I was kind of taking over and working a bunch of hours there. So that was going on while I was renovating these properties, putting new tenants in. Life was crazy. So I had a property manager, which low key is like one of the best lead sources for real estate deals, because the first person who knows when somebody's going to sell is going to be that property manager, because that seller is going to tell them to get it ready for sale or whatever. And so he kind of told me, he's like, hey, this guy is trying to sell off his portfolio. And he sent me a list of maybe like, I think it was like 10 or 12 properties. And so I analyzed, went through, drove around town to look at them all. And out of those 12, I think I ended up buying 5 initially and then 1 more later.
Wow.
But the guy, I just straight up asked him if he would sell or finance it. And he just said, yeah. And then the terms were like, I think it averaged out to be 9% down. So I put the 9% down with him. He did a seller note. And then that one like just was a game changer for me, because the buy price was so low that when I refinanced, I got like substantially more than I had put down out of it. So now I had like all this cash back, way more than I had that 9% I put down. And so long story short, just kept rolling it forward. And you do that enough times, you get more properties. And it's like, I was just hooked. Like as soon as I know I could like, increase the value, renovate it, just kind of do that process. It's like, it's pretty textbook once you start doing it, but rates were low and it was easy to do at the time. So try to jump on it.
It was a glorious time. Yeah. I had a few, I think, or have a few under 3% and a bunch under 3.5%. I mean, I think almost all of them are under 3.5%, except for the one that I bought last December, which is, an ugly rate I do not want to talk about. But, so are you're buying and rehabbing and renting? Are you flipping any? It sounds like you're keeping yours, right? And you're just, buying, rehab, rent.
Yeah. So I've never sold. I just always just rehabbed and refinanced out. And I think that's part of why I didn't want to jump back in. Like when I came back from traveling, is it's just like, even though you can refinance your money out, like you're just accumulating more debt. It's not really like a good way to earn active income, so to speak. It's more of like a long-term investment. So I just did that. Yeah. I just did kind of like pretty basic rehabs, like nothing like I was listening to Michaela's episodes, like nothing like she's doing. I'm doing like paint, maybe I'll change out the cabinets. I put new flooring in and like, that's pretty much it, enough to kind of make it
just a little bit more than what I do with our Airbnbs. With Airbnbs, it's usually like, okay, maybe some paint, and put like fancy toys that people want to play with.
Yeah, he's lining his photographer up, not the flooring guy when he's getting into him.
Hey, that sounds like the way to go.
Very cool. And then so you do that, between, I think you said a seasoning period. What is it? Is it 6 months after you purchase before you can refi? Is that?
Yeah, I was talking to a guy the other day, though. I think they might have changed it to be 12 months now.
Okay.
Is what I heard. But it was 6 months during that period.
And then you would, refinance with the expectation that you've added your value by fixing up the property, and then you'll get some cash out. You've, increasing your debt, but you're getting more cash out. Maybe not increasing your debt. I guess it depends on how you're structuring your refis.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, so you're increasing your debt, but you're getting more cash that you could then utilize to roll into other properties.
Yep. And almost, I think every single deal I was able to refinance out at least the capital that I put in.
Yeah.
And if I did a good enough job, I could get more than I put in.
Yep.
And the craziest thing to me when I was first learning is like, you really just have to convince one appraiser that the value is X amount. Like you don't have to sell it.
Which is super easy. You can even do that with photos. Like if you send them photos ahead of time that make it look better, or that you do simple things like making it just look nicer when they arrive, make it look clean, and you'll get better things on it. Make sure there's no noises or odd smells or anything. Make sure all the lights are on. It's bright. Turn the lights on is like one of those things that can raise your appraisal value. It's so funny how much that impacts everything.
I would print out all the like renovations I did. I'd say I'd change the AC, new HVAC, new flooring, and like itemize it. I'd put the cost, and then I'd even give them my comps. Obviously I kind of handpicked the better comps. Just a little something to kind of like try to help. But yeah, that's the craziest part of the process is like you just have to sell that one person.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It's so funny how much control they have over it. And it's also like whatever someone wants to pay for it is almost what it is priced at, because they see the value of it within reason. Like someone can't be just dumping a crazy amount of money into it, but a lot of times if someone's willing to offer X amount of dollars for it, it'll magically appraise for that amount, no matter what it would have appraised for 6 months ago. We had the same thing when we moved from Maryland down to Texas. We had bought our house a year and a half, I think, earlier, and it was like a $500,000 house, and then it sold for like 700 something, 700 it might have been 720, something like that. But it was a year and a half later, and we did a little bit of work to it, but not $200,000 worth of stuff. But it's just what people wanted to pay for it then. Interest rates were lower, and they were starting to go up, so people were like, "Let's get into a house now because money's going to be expensive soon." It's just the nature of it. Same thing when I got into to buying houses in the first place. It was 2006. By the time I had renovated some stuff, figured out how to do landlording things, it was 2008, and I'm like, all right, this is prime time to get into real estate. And it was not prime time to get into real estate. At that point, it was like impossible to refinance anything. Like even if you wanted to, people they weren't doing it. Everything was a mess then. So yeah, that was probably the worst time in the last 20 years of trying to buy something. But yeah, no, it's great that you're able to roll that into more properties. And now in San Antonio, there's a tremendous opportunity down there because if you want to go drive by and see the stuff, and houses are typically less expensive in Texas, which I imagine you can get into some cool properties or some rental locations. There's tons of campgrounds down there because of all the like for our RVs, campgrounds, cabins and stuff. I can't remember the name of it. There's a website that has them, or even a list if like some of them are like going to foreclose on and stuff, it'll list it. And you can buy them and just start doing something right then. And a lot of it, just like Jeff said, is a matter of photos. Like they just have awful photos of their place. They don't market it well, and a few photos and putting it out there, people will go on to. If someone can drive their RV onto there easily off the highway, they'll camp there. It's in Texas in particular. But yeah, because of all the parks and everything and near San Antonio and Alamo and everything, it's just you got so much near you that there's a lot of traffic of people wanting to visit.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So as you're doing the refinancing and closing on these these properties, how was it dealing with the banks? I know, when the first rental property I bought, I literally was driving to the house for the closing. It was my dad's birthday. I had my parents in the car, my 2 dogs. I had my mother-in-law, and we were like, they still hadn't got the clear to close. And it was literally supposed to close that day. And I'm like, oh man. And I'm yelling at, not yelling, but I'm just like, no, I was probably yelling. I'm going to close with cash. Your guys are done. I'm coming up there and I'm paying with cash, and I'm not going. You're going to get not going to dime at it if you don't get this figured out. And then I forget it. I'm not going to use this bank, and I went to another bank, and I had the same freaking situation where it was 3 days before, and they hadn't. And I know it was crazy during COVID, but did you deal with any of that? Because it was just my first 2 night situations were a nightmare to almost extent. I really was dreading closing on houses because of the mortgage. You're dealing with the mortgage. Had a couple of better experiences with different banks, but it just seems like a lot of times it's very stressful, and they're fighting over okay, what is your HOA fee on, and especially the more houses you get, the more complicated it gets. But what's the HOA? You didn't send me the HOA fee. I'm like, I pay $150 a year. What does that matter if I'm closing?
Oh my gosh!
What do you? And I get it. There's compliance and check boxes, but I'm like, why are you asking me 3 days before closing?
Yeah,
try to come up with a document that if it was that important for me, why didn't you ask it? 3 months ago. So talk me through how you navigate all that, because that was my least favorite with closing. Dealing with the real estates and close was dealing with the damn banks.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, it was literally probably the biggest part of it. I would say I put as much effort into that as the actual rehab part of it and coordinating contractors and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a nightmare. I mean, and they just ask for so many documents, and so I would say 1 to 7 wasn't I had the first one, and I had a W-2 at the time, so that was another reason why I pushed hard during that period. Was I had a W-2, I had. So I took advantage of that. So I would say, and then so my first loan was with Stifel Bank in St. Louis, and I used them for the first 7, because I think after 7, they get more strict with the Fannie Freddie loans. But since it was the same bank, they already had all my information. It was a W-2, they knew me. It was pretty easy. But after that, it got really hard. It got really, really hard. Like I had a list of literally, I have an Excel sheet of 30 banks, local, regional, that I was
Yep,
calling
yep.
through to try to get deals done.
Yep.
And I mean, it was brutal because I had to show, I had to show all my income every time, and I had everything saved pretty quickly. Like before they would even ask it, I would send stuff over that I knew they would ask for. But I also was pulling my credit like crazy. So I had all these things on my credit that I had to figure out how to remove, which was a nightmare. And then, yeah, I would say there was like 2 situations specifically that I know were a disaster, and we had to push the closing date on one of them. It was only like 2 weeks. The other one, we literally pushed it 2 months. Luckily, the seller was willing to work with me on it. But it was an FHA loan I was trying to get. And the way it was a 4-unit building, but the way it was zoned was as 2 separate parcels. So the only way for me to close on it, and even the lender like quit on it. He was like, good luck with this, whatever. But the only way to get it to close on it was to rezone it as one individual building. And I was willing to do it. I thought it was a great deal. Like it was a place I was going to move into. It was a house hack I was going to do. And so I took like literally 6 weeks to go to the courthouse and like, file all the paperwork. I had to call like crazy, trying to get people to actually push this paperwork through, but I was able to rezone it. I had to do like a site survey and all that kind of stuff. But once I had that paperwork, then the bank would approve it for the FHA loan. Yeah, a lot of just little silly stuff.
And we had a similar situation to that, in the fact that, this guy had, a 9-bedroom property, down by the beach. And, he's like, I'm not going to find anybody to buy the 9 bedrooms. So let me rezone it as a 5 and a 4. So then, of course, I went and I'm like, well, I want to buy both of them. So I ended up buying them both. But we just did 2 separate closings, 2 different banks. And, so now we own the 9-bedroom, but they're 2 separate units, as it relates from the mortgage standpoint. And I guess on the, the deeds and all that, as you said, it's all zoned as, now it's, and it's like instead of I think it's now considered a townhome instead of a single family home, all this annoying stuff because of
maybe your insurance has got to be higher because you're paying on.
Well, I have to have like, I have to have like the condo insurance. Like it's ridiculous. Like any, me and my wife were like the HOA, like it's all like all this like stupid paperwork because it's all zoned as a, as 2 separate, townhouses instead of one large, just single family home or whatever it was. But and for what it's worth, we did, he put them on the market at different times. So we purchased we closed within 2 weeks of each other, but like we made the offer on the first one and then he listed the other one like a few weeks later. I forget what it was, but it was one of the things where he put it on the market, but he wanted to close after is a shore house, so after the rental season. So it was one of those, I think we had like a 6 or 9 month wait or whatever. So some point in there, he put the other one. It was like, hey, I want that one too. And we initially passed on it, and they picked somebody else put in a bid and got it, and then they backed out or something fell through and then ended up getting it. So, but anyway,
so you're not in. Was it St. Louis? Is that where it was before you had the property? So you just have property management running that. Do you ever have to like go and look at it, or do you have family members up there to go and walk by and take a look, or how does that all work?
Good question. Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. So I have a property manager who does like I think only 3 properties now. I keep cutting them down. But when I was gone for the year traveling, he was doing all of them. I just felt like I was out of the country. Like I need somebody who's there, professional doing it. But property managers are terrible. I mean, I've just ran through them. I've had like 5 or 6 of them that I've never had good luck. They, maybe you're paying, 8 to 10% on like the management fee, but the decisions they're making on your repair bills and all that stuff, like can cost you way more than that fee. So at the end of the day, like I do most of them now myself. And that's just like the only way I feel like I can really maximize these properties, really profit well, and like feel good about it. And I think it makes sense. Like it almost makes me want to get more in order to like afford to bring somebody in house to help me manage it. But yeah, I manage
to run them for you.
Yeah. But I mean, so I do it all remote. So I mean, I have a good plumber, I have a good HVAC guy, I got a couple handymen. My family's still there, so every once in a while, like my dad will help run out and do something, and he loves it. Like he gets excited when I call to ask to do something because he's mostly retired now and like loves projects. So I'm lucky to have him, and yeah, it's honestly pretty easy. Like this week, I had to replace a stove, so I just
Don't
called my
say
stove
that.
guy. But yeah, I feel like my return on time spent in the real estate is so much higher than the Amazon business. And so that's like my goal this year is how can I make my Amazon business easier?
Yeah, no, I hear you on that because yeah, we spend a lot of time on running an Amazon business and a little bit less with the real estate. But
What was the driving factor to move into Amazon versus like get more properties in Texas?
Yeah, good question. So I feel like with the way I was doing it, like I said, I mean, it's good for investing. I don't feel like it's as good for generating income. Like you need to have a lot of doors to make, let's say, multi six figures in income. Um, like generally speaking, just rough numbers, I would say one door is like maybe $200 a month in cash flow. So if you want to make a couple hundred grand, I mean, that's like you're talking 100+ doors. Like it's a lot of work.
yeah, and you're building your wealth by building the equity into the property, but that don't help you pay the bills.
Yeah. Like all these big syndicator guys have huge, wealth, but the actual cash flow and income on it is not that high. So I feel like with real estate, the way to make good active income is flipping. Wholesaling real estate is great, but I didn't have much experience with that. So yeah, just thought I found Amazon and thought I'd give it a try, and it's been fun so far.
I mean, you did some massive growth. I mean, I think like you said, your first month was like in the hundreds of dollars, and then your second month was in like 25, or third month might have been $25,000 or something like that. So talk a little bit about your growth and how you made that happen, and how you felt confident about the buys that you were buying.
Yeah, totally. So first month I think was $600. Very proud of that. All RA. I didn't do any FBM at front. So I was sourcing stuff the first week and I was making buys, but none of it checked in till the end of the month. So yeah, I did a decent amount of RA, I would say the first 3 months. Like I was buying stuff in person, just scanning it with the apps. Did that for maybe the first 3 months or so, and then started transitioning more to OA and realizing like, okay, I'm getting my footing here. I can start, buying. I think like because I had the real estate supporting my income, I could go full time at it, which was a huge advantage. I also like had experience, buying expensive things and throwing money at things just to kind of try it. So honestly, I was never scared of losing a little bit of money on products. So like I was willing to try everything. And I always have been super, super wide with my catalog, like 500+ ASINs, even like at an early stage, like just trying everything. If I would find something RA that was one unit, like I'm buying that, I'm going to try it. Like realize it's kind of a pain later on to manage all that, but I just wanted to try everything. So I think that's maybe how I got some good feedback early on and was like testing buys and kind of getting that footing.
Now, do you do everything through a prep center at this point, or are you dealing with still packing stuff yourself?
So now I do everything I'm buying is all through 100% through a prep center finally. But I am still FBMing quite a bit from old gated inventory that I'm reselling on multiple different platforms. So we're FBMing every single day still, trying to get out of it, but hopefully maybe another month or two.
Yeah, no, I was trying it out to see. I want to like be able to talk to everybody about how FBM goes and kind of experiment with a few different things. So I bought a ton of stuff. It was FBM and that, and it started to become like dreading getting the orders. Like instead of like liking the money sound ding on the phone, I'm like, no.
Oh, there's more prep to do.
I'm like, it's like I'm packing the last thing, and it's like ding, ding, ding. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, I'll put that on the list, I guess, and send it out.
Such a great way to flip cash quickly. Though,
it is
take advantage of markets
really
for seasonal stuff. Like a lot of stuff you don't need to, but especially come seasonal Q4. Back to school. I think Dylan, you might have hit back to school a lot harder than I did, but they're just different seasonal stuff. You can really take advantage of getting in and out before it tanks or before you miss the whole season altogether with the check-in times.
Well, and you have daily payouts as well, Jeff. So like all of us don't have that advantage where
I have a whole other separate advantage.
Another 2 weeks
turning
beyond
cash
when you're
flow.
getting money back in, where we got to wait.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just like not set up for FBM either, which is, I think it took me like a year to realize that, but it's so I'm in an apartment on a 4th floor, which is, I got an elevator, so it's fine. We can do that up and down, but it's just so slow and I had no room. I was doing most of it out of my apartment. And then I finally got a friend's garage and then also moved into my wife's parents have a warehouse here. They had like an extra conference room that I kind of
nice.
took over. Which was great, but there was like steps going in and out. The door was really small, and I'm going through their offices as I'm bringing stuff in and out. And now I'm, in 3 different locations. So I'm at my apartment. I got a garage over here. Another, it was just a disaster. But yeah, now I'm in a storage unit that's a little bit better. But FBM's hard if you're not set up for it.
Yeah.
Last year I had ordered like 3,000 pounds worth of like different stuff, and for purpose of FBM. And I was like, I'll store it in the garage. And then at that time we were doing some other projects. The garage wasn't available. And I'm like, all right, I'll just put it in the hallway. But then the magnitude of the space that it took up, my wife's like, And so my office is upstairs. So I moved 3,000 pounds of stuff up the stairs and had it in different spots in the upstairs, and then had to move that all back down throughout the next coming months when it was being sold. It was a mess. I don't want to ever do that again. it's 17 steps to go up the
no less.
So I know Amazon can have some challenges with some newer sellers. Also, I know obviously there's been a lot of brand gating and stuff. So talk us through some of the challenges that you've faced as a newer seller trying to figure out how to do Amazon and still maintain that enthusiasm for Amazon at this point in time.
Heck yeah, I might be delusional, but I've always been optimistic about it. I honestly, people ask me, I'm like, I don't even know why, but when you see it work, you get so fired up, and when it works really well. But yeah, I've had quite a few setbacks. I mean, like most people starting out, I've had a Section 3, went through that. I would say that's one of the least bad thing that's happened to me. I don't even think it was that big of a deal. You had to prove my inventory and kind of go through that process, but I was fine with everything I had. At least I had the chance to interview with them and prove my case. But
how long that take to clear through?
It was about a week.
Okay, so that wasn't bad. I mean, I know it's probably a stressful week, but it's.
You were really new at selling at that point, weren't you? You were months into it at that point, right?
4 or 5 months, yeah.
Yeah. So your probably backlog of what you had to prove was probably a lot less of everybody else's with all the returns and different things, which is probably helpful with it in itself. But I tell everybody, when you start yelling at people on the other end of it and you start not acting professional, you're going to get, less results than what you want. If you act professional, you're organized, you have everything that they need, and you're trying to help them because they're going through a million of these things or you're going through one, you're going to have a lot better success rate than if you just, show up and act like a jerk to them on the phone.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I feel like some people just get lucky and it clears up quick, and other people, they have legitimate documents and for whatever reason, it doesn't get pushed through. So luckily mine wasn't too bad, but I'm sure other people had way harder time at it. But yeah, I had that. I've had, I think there was a lot of, kind of brand gating last year with let's say Adidas or Nike would shut down for a week and you had to reapply. I think that's happened again this year. So kind of went through that kind of stuff. Always stayed optimistic through all that. But the one that hit me really hard, I'm sure is the November regate situation with quite a few people were affected by it. And for me, it was 7 different brands all at once with basically 8 hours notice from Amazon to sell through your inventory. And so that one's, what I'm still dealing with to this day, trying to, liquidate and sell off all that kind of stuff that I bought heavy for. And it's the worst time of the year to have.
Yeah, I said they got you. What was it? Middle of November, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm, maxing everything out, spending like I never have. I'm talking to people all year and everybody's talking about how great Q4 is and their biggest regret is not spending enough. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to hit this hard. I had capital and I was like, I'm going to deploy it here. But yeah, I got burned pretty bad. I think the hardest part about it was like, for the first week or two, I was like, oh, it's going to come back. Like,
Yeah, it's just a
it's just a
glitch. I
glitch.
mean, I
No
know
big
we
deal.
talked about it a little bit.
And like every day that goes by, it's, some of the biggest sales days of the year. And then some people did, like some of the really big sellers got their accounts back.
Yeah, I would say I know three, I think, 8-figure sellers that, they got taken down and they were all back within a week or whatever. And, I think you hear some of those noise. Okay, it must be like a glitch, but
yeah, I mean, you were one of the people in our Q4 group, and it was like everybody was like, "Oh no!" Like, and it was, then we're like, "Hey Jeff, are you banned this?" And he goes to it like, "No, I'm good to sell still." And we're like, "What? Like, what's happening here?" But then like some other large sellers were kicked off of it, and they didn't get back on until January or whatever. Some people never got back onto it. It was kind of an odd thing because it was more random for most of the brands. Some of them sent out emails saying like, to keep this brand, as good as it could be on Amazon, we're limiting, seasonal sellers from, like Lego was one of those. Where said like, unless you've been selling them all year round, sorry, doesn't matter if you sell it a lot in Q4, we're not letting you sell it anymore. And so like some of that stuff was definitely a bummer and had to pivot, which was nice having the Q4 groups, you're getting different leads coming in from a lot of different sources. And like you said, if you have 500 SKUs or more, then you can kind of pivot a little bit. But if that is a lot of those brands that are getting hit, then you're in a spot where it's like,
and they hit you with 7, I think you said, right? So like, what percentage of your inventory that you were carrying, in freaking peak? I wouldn't say peak, but peak prep time for Q4 did you get sort of zapped and restricted?
Too much. And that was the biggest learning lesson. But I would say it was 75% probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had to recall back.
So here's how it played out. I mean, I had, it all goes stranded. I had quite a bit more FBM, a lot at my house, but also at a prep center that I was FBMing. So I'd say I had more inventory FBM than FBA that got restricted. But basically, I mean, it happened. We all didn't know what was going to happen. So I left it there. And then a lot of people were saying, this happens during Q4. It might loosen up in Q1. Yeah. So I think most of the people that got hit by this just left it there in Amazon, paying storage fees, just letting it sit. Q4 storage fees.
Yeah, Q4 storage fees, nonetheless. Oh, man.
Yeah. So come January, I think most people are still like, optimistic. Maybe, things will lighten up and
like, okay, we'll wait till January 15th. That's like, the end of the period or whatever.
Yeah. So that came and went. And then basically in February, I was like, all right, I got to start making moves on this stuff. It's too much there. And so that's when I started recalling, was like, I think beginning of February. And so, yeah, it was just removal order, like literally for a month straight. I was filling up a car full of removal orders. I still have all my little flyers for each removal that comes. I got to look at what it is and check it into my inventory so I can list it. Literally for a month straight, probably 8-hour days of just checking in inventory. And then also, I was sending stuff out too. So I'm packing orders. Luckily, it's going out the door as well.
Yeah.
Not nearly as quick, but
did you get Did any of the gates open? Are they all still hard gated for you, or
everything's still hard gated and like zero communication, no ability to apply, canned responses every single time? Like I'm in text group with probably 8 or 9 other sellers that also got affected. Kind of same thing. Everybody's getting the same, generic messages, and it's pretty rough. Like
there's some people that are on like the X and on Instagram that were posting all the time. I don't know where they are anymore. Like, you don't hear from anybody. Like, people got hit really hard with it and just either didn't pivot, didn't want to pivot, or something worse happened. I don't know, but it's crazy how many people that affected.
So now, obviously, it sounds like you reached out to a lot of people, networked with people. Did you hear from people that got it reversed, and did they ever get some insight of what they did? Because it definitely seemed odd that some people got completely zapped out, and some were able to reverse it, and other folks like you've never got a straight answer, right? Just that essentially it's our platform and we can limit the brands as we feel fit, as we want, right? Is that all you've really heard?
Basically, yeah. So I talked to a few of those big sellers that were getting them back, and they didn't do anything special at all. I mean, a few of them, or at least the ones I talked to, didn't specifically, you know, they were submitting the same cases I was submitting, getting the same responses back, and it just magically opened up for them. Other than that, there's only one individual out of, I've probably talked to 20 plus sellers affected by it. Only one guy, Jason, who you guys may know him on Twitter. He got his back. And I honestly think maybe it's a coincidence. He did have like a consultant person that was kind of helping him, who I've actively talked with as well. And I think others have, but I don't know how he got his back. It doesn't sound like he did anything other than, you know, kind of submitting the cases we all were, but maybe he put more of them through and got to the right person. Or
I had to reapply for a few of them, and it wasn't until like we were talking to Deke, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's open back up." And I'm like, "It is?" And like a few of the ones I couldn't, it wouldn't let me. And then some of them I was like, "Oh yeah, it's I know I was ungated in it. And now it's saying I'm gated in it, but it's at least allowing me to submit something to ungate." But some of them just it didn't allow you at all. It was kind of a shocker for a lot of them, because a lot of it I was like, all right, I know how I'm going to have my Q4 go. I know which brands I really want to hammer hard and sell, and then all of a sudden you get hit with all that. You're like, oh my gosh.
So the one that was interesting is I was really liking Lego, and I had sold it really all year, like somewhat consistently. And so I know when it first happened, I was still able to sell it. I think there was like a couple different waves of it, and I was able to sell it up until the day that everything else got shut down. Like it was one of the 7 brands. Weird. So that one was weird to me. Like I was selling it while a lot of people got gated, but then it was included in this batch. So
good thing with Lego is that on the first round of it, I got the email that was like, you don't qualify because you don't sell this all year, essentially.
Gotcha.
But the other brands, I didn't get emails for other brands. Like I don't think any of them sent out anything. Mattel might have. No, I don't think Mattel did. I think it just didn't. Mattel just blocked everything, and which you don't realize how many things are Mattel until Mattel.
So it's Q4 and you're trying to sell Mattel.
It's amazing. So yeah, that's interesting that you had so many that were hit, and so you still like today cannot go back, and it still shows like hard restricted for you. Wow.
Yeah.
So talk us how you adapted, right? Because I mean, we're talking peak pre Q4, 75% of your inventory, restricted. Most of us would have just cried in a hole and cursed off Amazon. It sounds like you're still enthusiastic about it, and clearly have adapted very, very well. So sort of talk us through how you survived Q4 and what you're doing now to still have some enthusiasm, even missing what was probably 7 of your top brands, pre-peak Q4.
Yeah, there was a little bit of crying in a hole for sure. There was that. But I think like I saw enough stuff out of the 25% of my inventory I could sell. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, man, it's great. Like it's so profitable. Like everything's going well. And like, I know I have the skills there. The business like feels good when it's working. And so I think that's maybe what I'm holding on to, and the optimism I have. I'm also just like to a fault, super optimistic. And so there's that, but just you got to move on. I mean, it's live or die. So you got to just figure out a way forward. There's no point in dwelling on the past. I probably could have submitted more cases than I did. Honestly, I just kind of was like, I got to move on and move past this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, immediately I got up on Walmart, which is a blessing. I was able to start diversifying, selling on more platforms. I've always been on eBay seller, so I listed everything on there that I could. Found Mercari, found Depop, like kind of just, listing everywhere I could. But primarily it was through network of people that I spent, a year kind of networking online and talking to people, where I was able to either sell to them directly or just kind of offset that way. There's a lot of people, as you can imagine, that were quitting Amazon too after Q4 that didn't really, care about their accounts and stuff. So kind of networked with some of those people and was able to sell stuff off that way. But you got to just kind of do what you got to do when you're in that situation. So
nice.
That was most of it.
I had some people from some like old networking groups and stuff that reached out to me. They're like, are you able to sell this? Because I'm hard gated it now, and I got $18,000 of socks or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, and it's that's a lot. I mean, it's for someone who's like their own seller. Like they don't have a network of people. They don't have a warehouse. They're sending stuff off to prep send it to FBA. They might be doing some FBM that time of year, but the vast majority of that stuff is FBA. So now they're paying fees to get it sent back to them. And, at that time of year, it's expensive with shipping and everything, or it takes a long time to get it. And then now they're having to deal with trying to figure out where to sell it in somewhere else, which no other platform gets the amount of eyeballs that Amazon does for the most part for new items. For like used items, obviously like eBay and that's great. But like Walmart, as big as they are, it's not as great for third party yet because there's just not as many people going there to shop, and they're not necessarily shopping for the same things that they are on Amazon. So it's definitely
that's the biggest problem.
Trickier to sell on.
Yeah, and you're buying for Q4 volume where maybe something that moves 2,000 in the month of November might move 100 units in the month of February. So it's just like, where am I going to go with all this? And so that's been like the hardest part, and why it's still to this day still like getting out of it. And I was literally messaging 5 minutes ago with a couple other guys that are like still getting removal orders to their house, and it's a grind, but yeah.
Are you doing WFS on Walmart, or are you doing all the merchant fulfilled?
A little bit of both. I want to move more to WFS, because I do. It's so easy to send in. It's like the easiest shipment,
especially after dealing with Amazon's new API.
Yeah, and stuff just seems to move. It gets promoted, I guess, a little bit better, and definitely want to get out of FBM too. So that's part of it.
Yeah, it's pretty awful, and but yeah, that's a lot to manage with everything trying to run. So now you're essentially running an eBay business, a Amazon business, a Walmart business, and it's something that Jeff and I have been working with a company on doing some things where they're able to manage all those different platforms. So eBay, Shopify, Walmart, and Amazon, and even that the API pooling from Walmart is tough to get the exact information. They don't allow the information to flow that direction that well off of their platform. So to try to make something work really well is always a little bit cumbersome. So there's a lot of things you got to jump through to make reporting look right, but that way you can run your whole business on one thing. So we'll be doing kind of an announcements where Prep Ship Hub is the name of the company. And it'll be something where you can join on to and run all the different platforms from there. Now they don't have Mercari and those kind of things on there, but at some point they might. But it allows you to do merchant fulfill all in one spot, to log into all your accounts and send everything in all from one software. And then when you get your removal orders and returns, you just scan the label, it pops right up and tells you hey, this is what's in that box. And then you can open up the box, scan the LPNs or whatever the item is, and then say, okay, this is damaged box. I want to put it back on eBay, or this is something I want to move over to Walmart, or whatever it is. So being able to do that just saves so much time. And that's why Jeff and I have been really pushing for about a year now, working with them, trying to get them to be able to release to the point where it can be to individuals. Right now, it's only for prep centers mainly.
That's cool.
But something we'll definitely tell you all about once we're kicking it off officially.
So have you shifted at all to wholesale? You still, mostly OA? How is your business, your sourcing sort of adapted?
Yeah, that's been something that obviously, you lose the main brands that you're used to sourcing. So I found my groove, and the groove had to quickly change.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been putting a lot of time into, honestly, because that's the bread and butter of the business. So I feel like I've done a lot more different categories than I was doing before OA, and I still absolutely love OA. And I love to see your enthusiasm with OA too, because I would love to continue always to have it in my business, but I am putting a decent amount of attention into wholesale and the brand direct route, mainly just to give it a try to see if it's all it's chopped up to be. But I think for my skill set with past sales experience and stuff too, I think I might actually be better suited for it as well.
I was thinking that when you said sales experience, because that's what I always say when I hear people, hyping up wholesale, and I'm like, well, it's not. To me, it's not. One's not better than the other. I mean, can you scale a wholesale business to 100 million that might not be able to do in OA? Sure. Most of the people talking, you're not talking about scaling to that level, and you can do both. And what works better for you? You might not be a salesperson. Well, wholesale, especially brand direct wholesale, may not be for you, because there's a lot of sales trying to nail down a brand direct account that's going to be good, right? Because ultimately, if you call up a supplier and say, hey, can I have a price list? I want to make a purchase. Sure, here it is. And they give you a price list and they're going to sell to you. They're not going to be profitable. Like, they're just not, because you need to get those ones that are harder. There's got to be something that's, making it good, good, because if not, everybody would get it, especially with, the amount of people doing wholesale nowadays. So,
it's so much more relationship driven. And anytime you talk to a supplier, it's, they'll give you better deals if they know you and if you buy from them regularly. If you're like a once in a blue moon buyer from them, it doesn't really help them. They can't count on that money coming from you to hit their quotas and all the different things. They want to know that you're going to consistently order from them.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. It's very impressive that you've been able to adapt to lose 75% of your inventory. I know it's been painful, but I know it's got to be inspirational for some people that are dealing with it. That hey, you've adapted and are still making it work. Here with Amazon and looking for other ways to source, and it's very impressive because it's difficult, and that's what you got to be with the business owner, especially on the Amazon platform, is ready to adapt.
Pivot.
Because, you're going to get some roadblocks within the way, and what I would hope is as you continue to grow your business, that some of those barriers will remove, right? I obviously have no idea what drives them, but I know for myself, like a lot of stuff as I started to grow, you start to hit that, again, you have to have not the hard restriction, the soft restriction, but you see it turn into a soft restriction and you hit approve and it says, hey, you're approved for seller performance. So as you get some tenure, hopefully that clears up. And certainly I'd still open up cases here and there and say, what the heck's going on? Why am I hard gated on this stuff? But
you seem like a planner, so I'm going to ask you, so are you already making plans for back to school buying and for ideas of what you kind of want to do? And not obviously Q4 is a little bit way out, but some directions of what you want to drive for, like you said, wholesale or OA, or you say you're getting out of FBM, and then you're going to hit the prime FBM times of the year. So which is always what happens.
Exactly.
What's your plan?
Probably to FBM a whole bunch and make my life a chaos, most likely. But I'm definitely thinking I want to hit back to school hard. But I guess what I'm struggling with now is I'm decent with OA sourcing. I can't spend like I used to. It takes me quite a bit more time to spend how I used to with OA. But I want to put the effort into wholesale as well. So I'm just trying to figure out how to split my time. But I'd say the last 5-6 months has been just hammering down systems, trying to get Jeff's, button pusher that was big for me. I got, more of a button pusher now who's placing OA orders when I have, trying to get that time back and just build all these systems to make the OA part of it as easy as I possibly can. Because as we all know, it's more of hitting these certain loops and cycles and it starts to repeat itself. So I'm trying to build that out as much as I can and free myself up for more of that wholesale outreach. So I'd say that's kind of what I'm planning towards. But if it comes, peak back to school and there's OA opportunities, shoot, even RA opportunities, I'm going to be out there.
There's both. It gets pretty wild. But the OA is massive on what you can purchase and just the type of items that you can buy. So if you're ungated in certain brands that match that, it's just the volume can be massive in certain things. And everybody knows anything that's related to kids going to school, backpacks, shoes, clothes, any of the paper pencils, any of that kind of stuff, just the most oddball things you'll see a skyrocket in price and volume. It's pretty amazing.
A lot of RA opportunities too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got to one point where I had a part-time shopper who was picking up from the outlets, now a gated brand. But so that's been a lot of my removals coming back. I'm like, oh man, it's all these random outlet shoes. It's terrible to deal with. But she was going 2 days a week. She'd fill up her car, maybe 100 shoes, and then I'd ship out, 200 shoes a week FBA. And I was just kind of paying her by the shoe. But that was cool to see. I'm like, I don't have to go to the outlets. She lived right next to him and comes into San Antonio all the time. So it was a great setup.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what we used to do, is try to find the people near the outlets and, have them do the sourcing and get the stuff to us. But
yeah, I mean, outsourcing anything you can is nice because it frees you up to do other things or do grow. If you do want to do more of the same thing, it allows you to, if you don't physically have to be doing it, go do something else that only you can do. So that's just always a way to keep growing.
Yeah, that's kind of my theme this year. Just trying to figure out more of that.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're at a good stopping point. As where can people reach you? It looks like that's RE_FBA on X or Twitter. Are you on any other social media platforms, or is that kind of where you direct everybody over to reach out to you, talk to you, ask questions?
Yeah, Twitter's the best. That's the platform I'm on the most.
Okay, cool. And then, as always, for anybody who's watching, we have you can kind of join our Discord group, FBABasecamp.com. You can click on that and just drop your email and name in. You get to a page where you can either go to our Facebook page or our Discord. Discord's probably the most active out of all of them. And then we have bunches of links and all different stuff that some of them have discount codes, different things to the different softwares and everything that we use. If you want to click them, go ahead, but definitely join our community and ask lots of questions in there. We love to hear everything. All right, Dylan, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right.